Let's start first. What's your most poignant memory in politics with Stephen Harper?
Well, I think the biggest accomplishment in the early years was the reunification of Conservatives under one big tent, Hannah, as your coverage just noted. I think that gave Canadians a clear choice between the Liberal Party of Canada and the Conservatives. And I think before that, we saw, three successive chrétien Liberal majority governments, partly at least created through the division of Conservatives between the Reform Party and the Progressive Conservative Party.
Now, it's not a total surprise, of course, that Harper's leaving politics today, maybe a surprise, but what was your thought on that decision he made?
Well, I think it's the right decision. I think he's often talked about generational change. I think that the correct decision following the loss of government last fall was when he stepped down as leader. He's had some time to mentor the incoming caucus from the last election. He certainly kept a low profile, I think, as it was appropriate as the outgoing leader. But I think that he's given his constituents and Canadians a chance to adjust to the fact that it's time for him to move on. I think he's doing it with grace and style, and I fully support his decision at this time to move back into the private sector.
Now, talking about the private sector, he's going to go on to be a consultant on international relations, those types of things. It was kind of a lukewarm answer from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on that, kind of saying, they think in different ways when it comes to foreign policy. What could you see him doing in the future?
Well, I think that there is an opportunity for him to bring his wealth of experience. I often remarked to Stephen when I was both his whip and later his House leader in cabinet that if we could transpose how highly Canadians regarded him on the international stage to the domestic front, I think his polling numbers would be much better. I think that Canadians, by and large, were proud of the stands he took, certainly a strong stand against ISIS. Very proud of the work that our men and women in the Canadian Air Force did in assisting our allies in attacking ISIS in the Middle East. Back to the days of when we were in Afghanistan, we were a strong ally there. I fully supported his continued position of support for Israel as the only democracy in the Middle East. And, I think these types of positions were largely regarded as Canadians as just a strong Canada exerting its pressure and its influence on the international stage. Now, obviously, the incoming Liberal government of Justin Trudeau have a different position than we have. I think that many Canadians are quite appalled at the position that they took when they pulled our fighters and bombers out of the Middle East. But that's decisions for the new government. So I think there's a great opportunity for Stephen and his consulting firm on the international stage.
Now, you were talking about some of the successes you felt he had as Prime Minister. What would you say is the biggest success, though? Is it merging the right? Is it his focus on fighting ISIS or something like the economy? Or is it something else?
Well, I think you named a few of them, Hannah. I think that the reality is that you have to look at it in different segments. If you look at it politically, certainly it was in offering Canadians a clear choice between conservatism and liberalism. During successive elections after we reunified the Conservative movement in Canada. That's on the political front. Domestically, I don't think that there's any doubt that his greatest success, and it'll become even more clear in the years to come, was balancing the budget, steering us, along with the help from the late Jim Flaherty, who really spearheaded our efforts to maintain a solid financial footing through the greatest financial crisis that the world has seen since the Great Depression. So I think domestically, certainly the management of the economy, and at the same time, I would add that we enjoyed the lowest personal income tax in 50 years. And so I think that Canadians, that too will come home in the next little while as taxes have to go up to fund Liberal largesse. And then on the international stage, we have had a multitude of free trade agreements. The country's continuing those efforts with Europe and with Asia. We had a succession of other countries down in Latin America, South America, that we forged free trade agreements with. So there was many successes on the international front as well. And as I already alluded to, great leadership in issues in the Middle East, in the Ukraine. I'm very proud of the job that Stephen Harper did for Canada during his time.
Now, those are a lot of his successes, but, you know, we have to talk a little bit about, you know, he knows what I'm coming to, Jay. The Prime Minister really isn't without controversy. He had a little bit of a different leadership style. His relationship with the press was always put under the spotlight. Do you think any of those types of things will tarnish his legacy?
Well, I think, as you say, it provides a counterbalance to his successes on a myriad of fronts. Certainly, I often remarked if we were going to run an election campaign that came down to a referendum on Stephen Harper's personality, we might be in a bit of trouble. And I think, unfortunately, that's what happened in the last election campaign is a lot of the media attention and the voters' attention was on Stephen Harper, the person. I mean, there's no secret he never worked really hard to be liked. He felt he had a job to do, and I believe he did it very well. And I respect him immensely for the job he did, regardless of the fact that he used to often remark that when it came to personality in his family, his brother, the accountant, got all the personality.
It's so true. But you know what? We always saw, he really did, and you know this better than I do, but he really did have a good sense of humor. He poked fun at John McCallum, for instance. He had a great impression of John McCallum. What are one of those moments you remember of sitting back and laughing? Because that's mine. I remember that sense of humor, too. Even though he could be a bit persnickety, there was also that other side to him. Oh,
certainly. He had I would suspect it continues, even though I haven't seen him for a few months. He has a great wit and a great sense of humor. Unfortunately, he doesn't show it publicly. But I remember many caucus meetings when his sense of humor, whether it was, as you said, impressions of other politicians that he would do that was bang on. It was great stand-up comic routine. But I remember one time in particular when I was feeling a lot of stress. We had the minority government. I was the House leader. I was trying to get some legislation through on behalf of all Canadians. And I was walking down the hallway in Centre Block, and the Prime Minister fell into step with me, and we were just chatting a bit. And I was, I guess, doing a bit of complaining. And he turned to me and he said, "Well, Jay, that's why you get the medium bucks."
Exactly.
And I couldn't help but laugh, even despite the stress of the moment.
Exactly. Jay Hill, thank you for joining us. Also, you know, wish Ben Loreen and, oh my gosh, I forgot his daughter's name for a second. Rachel, the best of luck in retirement out of his political life anyway. Thanks.
Well, I'm sure he won't be retired, Hannah. He's going to be working hard, but I will.
Okay. Thanks so much, Jay.